Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Keith. This is all things Tenerife and more. I'm in Dublin on the banks of the Liffey on the south side at the moment. I'm heading across Cable Street Bridge. This vlog comes with a bit of a warning, I'm going to say. People waving at me and I missed them because I was looking at myself. Okay, warning this comes with is scams in taxis in Dublin City. Now, as a lot of people know who follow me, I was once a taxi driver in Dublin City. So when I heard about the scam, the recent scam, didn't surprise me because it's been going for years. Recently there's been a taxi, two taxis caught with the same taxi plate. So the roof sign is their plate. So they had the same number on them, two different cars, but the same number on them. So obviously one of them was legal, one of them wasn't. So someone had cloned the taxi. Now, that particular thing has been going on for years in Dublin. Absolutely for years. And it's not unusual. So I thought I'd do a little vlog for all of my subscribers who are tourists or those who don't get taxis in Dublin that often and want to know what you should or shouldn't pay. Okay, I suppose coming in from the airport, most tourists come in from the airport, and from the airport to Dublin City for two people shouldn't cost you any more than about 25-30 euros, maybe 35. Fares have gone up slightly since I used to drive them. Now when you get into a taxi, you'll notice there's one there. That sign on the side has to be there on both sides, and the sign on that should match the number that's on the top of the roof sign. So first thing to note is the number on the door match the number on the roof sign. If you've got that, that's a start that you're getting into a legitimate taxi. And in fairness, normally in the airport you would be, because they are vetted and they do pay a fee to be in the airport, so they tend to be vetted. And An Garda Síochána and the taxi regulator both patrol the airport quite well, so you should be, as I said, should be getting into a legitimate taxi if you're getting into one in the airport. Not to say that scams don't happen. So, tip number one for you: check before you leave roughly what the fare is going to cost you. Agree a price before you get into the car. Two, insist that the meter is put on. So once they put the meter on from the airport with you and your partner or your passenger, whoever's traveling with you, there should be no additional charges on the meter other than what you've paid. So 380 plus one for the additional passenger. Understand what I'm saying? One person travels without additional cost, and the other, there's a charge, a €1 charge for every passenger over one. So if you're in an 8-seater van, there should be €7 on your extras, and depending on what time you're getting into, what time you're getting into a taxi at, should be 380 in the daytime, 480 in the evening time, and on a Sunday all day, 420 as well. So 420 in the evening, 420 on Sundays, and 380 during the day. So outside of that, if you're doing a tour maybe, as a group of people in the car, yeah, drivers can go off the meter and agree a price. But I would agree a price, and a fair price, I think, as someone who did it. If you're getting into a taxi with a driver who's going to bring you around the city or wherever you've chosen to go, and he has a decent knowledge of where he's bringing you, so he's giving you a little bit of history, he's giving you a little bit of banter and Irish charm, whatever you want to call it. To be honest, if you have 5 or 6 people in the car, it's worth at least €100 an hour for a tour like that, and you're not being robbed at that. Because if you were to jump onto a hop on hop off bus and get the same sort of tour where you're look at this guy, beautiful Irish wolfhound, you wouldn't get the same personal tour. So they set you back between 30 and 35 euros on those buses. So if you multiply that out by 5 or 6 people, yeah, €100 an hour is not a bad amount of money to pay for a private tour. So, as I said, like any other city in the world, Dublin has its taxi drivers that will try and scam the tourists, and it's like anything, just be aware that these things are out there. And if you are aware of scams and you're aware of what you should and shouldn't pay, you're less likely to get robbed. or scammed, as the case may be. So the Transport for Ireland have an app that you can download. Transport for Ireland regulate all forms of transport in the country, from taxis to buses, anything that charges a fare or fee to get you around the city. They regulate all of those services, so they're well worth checking out. Simple enough thing to download and have a little look, see what you're supposed to be charged, and just be aware. As I say, it's like anything. Knowledge is power. If you know that Slattery's Bar, sorry, great spot for a pint of Guinness apparently. Not that I'm a Guinness drinker, but apparently this is one of the best places for it. The famous Louis Copeland, the Savile Row of Dublin. Anyway, so back to this. So just be aware when you're here, download that app and it'll give you a rough idea of what you're going to pay. But just to be on the safe side, make sure that when you get inside of a taxi, there should be cards that explain the fare system. The fare structure should be in there, in the back of the taxi when you get in. Should be one on the dashboard. There should be a photograph of the driver with Bailliachlia and his number, which again should match the one on the roof of the taxi. Make sure that these all match up. I don't want to make people sort of paranoid or overly conscious of it, but if you feel like your taxi fare is a little bit more than you think it should be, these are the questions you ask, and these are the, I suppose, the things to look out for. Another thing, they have to accept credit card, debit card. It's not just cash. If they tell you that they don't accept cash, no interest. Just walk away. Don't even pay them. Let the guards, they'll involve the guards, or they'll very quickly take out their card reader. For the last number of years, every taxi in the city has to have a card reader and has to accept a card reader. They have to accept credit cards or debit cards. So again, don't let them con you out of paying by card if it suits you to pay by card. And as I said, make sure that the photograph matches the individual behind the car. And don't be afraid to ask them. It's nobody. If it's a legitimate taxi and a legitimate taxi driver, you'll have no issue answering your questions, and you'll have absolutely no issue explaining the fare structure to you either. So just be aware. Another thing, people often ask, do you tip taxis? Yes, you do. Like any service, you tip it. In Ireland, no different to anywhere else. People will say, oh, don't tip taxi drivers. I say if you get a good service that you think is worth tipping, tip them. If you don't, don't. But a lot of people say that you're not meant to. That's a fallacy. You are, like any service, if you get a service and it's good, by all means, tip the guy. So, that's it for now. Shock, taxi scam in Ireland, taxi scam in Dublin. There's so many taxi scams. I've covered them in Tenerife. Figures I may as well cover them here as well. Okay, if you find this informative, hit the like, subscribe, the bell for notification, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.